Good day, one and all friends and foes. You know who you are. I'm Cal, and you're listening to Missing Links Movie Podcast, the weekly movie news podcast. We're going to spend a bit of time going over some top-billed articles, new trailers and release dates, and what's opening in theaters this week. So whether you're a fan of Oppenheimer, Barbie, or both, this is a show for you. I'm live on Spotify and YouTube now on the channel Missing Link Movies. So if that is your preference, then go ahead on over there and look me up. Again, the channel name is Missing Link Movies. This podcast is a stream of consciousness, no hold bar, off the cuff, just minimal editing required type of podcast. So we're just going to be going through it and it'll be interesting. So without further ado, let's introduce our top billed stories this week. First, let's start off with the box office report last week. For last weekend, rather. Again, this is for the domestic box office, since the worldwide box office doesn't really do a weekend update for every week. But so domestically in the United States last weekend, we saw The Nun 2 at number 1. That had already been released. I think it's holding on to its number 1 position. And at number 2, we have A Haunting in Venice that did open last weekend. And that's the new Hercule Poirot film from Kenneth Branagh. And at number 3, we have The Equalizer 3. Number 4, Big Fat Greek Wedding 3. 5, Barbie. 6, Blue Beetle. 7, Jawan. 8, Gran Turismo. 9, Oppenheimer. 10, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem. So I think pretty soon here, probably this weekend, I'm thinking we're going to see Ninja Turtles drop out of the top 10, especially because it just released on streaming on Paramount Plus. Blue Beetle might hold on, but I think Blue Beetle is also coming to Max pretty soon, but I think it'll be probably number 10, number 9. But this Jawan movie that I believe is a Bollywood movie, I'm surprised that's in the top 10 at all, honestly. But we'll see after this weekend how things change. That's the box office report. Moving on, we've got an article about let's see. Elemental is the most viewed movie premiere on Disney Plus of 2023. So this comes straight from the Disney Plus press website, whatever blog. And I wanted to bring this up because we talked about The Little Mermaid last week having a 16 million debut over its first several days on the service. So the post goes like this. Elemental is the most watched movie premiere on the year on Disney Plus and among its top 10 movie premieres of all time, earning 26.4 million views in its first 5 days of streaming. Let's see. Elemental has become the most viewed animated movie premiere since Disney and Pixar's Turning Red was released in March 2022, as well as the most viewed Disney Plus movie premiere of all time in Latin America, just ahead of Turning Red. So I wanted to bring this up because we talked about, like I said, Little Mermaid last week, bringing in 16 million viewers in its first several days. So Elemental, quite an improvement over what Little Mermaid saw in terms of its Disney Plus debut. In terms of the box office of these movies, they were a little more comparable or a little more similar. I don't think there is a huge difference as much as it is with their Disney Plus thing. So, for example, Elemental's budget was $200 million and its box office gross was $486 million. It started out really low. It looked like it was going to be yet another flop for Disney this year. But then due to word of mouth and pretty positive reviews, it was able to really pick up the pace, and it had a good set of legs that enabled it to make more than 2.5 of its budget back, which is generally kind of what a success is termed as, is if a film can gross 2.5 times its budget back. and that does apply to Elemental. However, so Little Mermaid had somewhere between a $250 and $265 million budget. Again, Elemental was $200 million, Little Mermaid $250 to $265 million. And at the box office, Little Mermaid made $569 million against Elemental's $486 million. Now, for Little Mermaid to have been a technical success, it would have had to make at least $625 million, give or take. So it was under that, but I think probably compared to what Disney was expecting to make off of it, I think it vastly underperformed their expectations. I don't think it would classify as a box office bomb, but it would. It definitely is an underperformance considering the past performance of previous live action remakes that Disney has put out. Again, I'm thinking of like Lion King made over $1 billion. Alice in Wonderland made over $1 billion. And granted, that came out a few years ago now, but definitely a downward trend with these live action remakes. But again, this article is not about Little Mermaid. It's about Elemental. Elemental I did watch over the weekend. I was one of those 26 million that watched it on Disney Plus in its first few days. And I really genuinely thought it was a good movie. I think the trailers just, like, they need to hire a new marketing department or they must hire out their trailer editing to like a rival studio or something, because the trailer for Elemental did it no favors. I thought it looked painfully generic for a Pixar movie, but honestly, I think we take for granted how excellent a generic Pixar movie can be, because all of Pixar is so good. Because so much of their filmography are 9s and 10s. I think an 8 or a 7 is like seen as a real dud, but it's still a 7 or 8. And so I really enjoyed Elemental. It had a great score. I particularly liked the score. And obviously the visuals were great. A few too many element related puns with the city for my taste. That got a little old. They didn't draw a whole lot of attention to them. But they more just had them as Easter eggs on like billboards or, cars, bumpers, ads, that sort of stuff. But I just, not too into it. And honestly, the whole city as a whole felt a little derivative of Zootopia. But overall, the character development, I really appreciated that they used some up and coming actors they didn't use A-list actors, I should say, for all of the voice roles. They used people that I was looking at in IMDb, and I was like, oh, I've never seen these people, but they did a great job. And that's always appreciated when they go with lesser known people to really showcase their talent and stuff like this. So I would recommend Elemental. But then again, animation is my niche, and Elemental is Pixar, so I would say there's not very many reasons not to see it. I think you'll definitely get something out of it. So that's it for Elemental. Moving on, we have some updates on the writers and Screen Actors Union strikes. More so just for the Writers Union. So this comes from Variety by Cynthia Littleton and Matt Donnelly. Headline says, WGA and AMPTP to meet Friday. Guild calls for strong picket turnout as contract talks heat up. So over the last few days, I believe the Producers Guild and the Writers Guild have resumed talks, I think starting on Wednesday. So this is today, being Friday, is the third day of their negotiations. The article says, the Writers Guild of America and Hollywood's major studios will meet for a third day of bargaining Friday as Hollywood wrestles with growing hopes of a deal balanced with concerns that key issues in the nearly 5-month strike battle remain in contention. The WGA and AMPTP met for bargaining today and will meet again tomorrow, the WGA said in a negotiations update message sent to members late Thursday. Your negotiating committee appreciates all the messages of solidarity and support we have received the last few days and ask as many of you as possible to come to the picket lines tomorrow. So the Writers Guild has been on strike since May 2nd. This is, a continuing development. Hopefully they're able to, make some progress on things. The article elsewhere says that optimism about a settlement coming together was stoked by the presence of CEOs and senior leaders of four of Hollywood's largest employers: Disney, Netflix, NBC Universal, and Warner Bros. Discovery. So it looks like it's believed that the sides have moved towards a compromise on the Writers Guild's demand for a new minimum staffing formula to be implemented for writers on episodic TV programs. Other issues discussed Thursday include the complicated problem of regulating the use of generative AI in writing for screen, as well as WGA's push to add into the master film and TV contract the right for its members to honor strikes and picket lines of other unions. So this is the first time they've resumed negotiations in over a month. So we will see, I guess. As of now, I assume they're, in discussions now, but we'll probably see next weekend on the next episode of the show what the results of those talks were. All right, so our next article isn't necessarily specific to film, but more just the film and TV industry in general. I guess the last article was too. But so this is from the Hollywood Reporter, the Hollywood Reporter's Rick Porter. Amazon to bring commercials into Prime Video. So the article says another formerly ad-free streaming service is adding commercials to its programming. Amazon announced Friday morning that its Prime Video service will feature limited ads beginning in early 2024. An exact date is to be determined. What's more, the ad tier will be the default option for Prime Video, which is included in an Amazon Prime membership, along with free shipping on packages, Amazon Music, and other perks. The company says the price of a regular Prime subscription won't rise next year, but users who want to continue watching Prime Video without commercials will have to pay an extra $2.99 per month. And they'll alert users a few weeks ahead with instructions on how to sign up for ad-free viewing. So this is yet another, quote-unquote, casualty in the streaming service market where they're introducing ad-free tiers, but the difference is that while other streaming services like HBO Max and Netflix introduced new, cheaper tiers supported by ads, other services like Hulu and sorry, I lost my train of thought. Like Hulu, are taking their ad-free tier, which is the base, and then like Hulu is raising the cost. I think, yeah. And so this isn't like they're introducing a lower tier of Amazon Prime Video that's supported by ads. This is the base tier that they're introducing ads to, and you'll have to pay more to get no ads. Very interesting. It says in the article, Amazon says the inclusion of ads, it promises meaningfully fewer commercials than linear TV on Prime Video will help the streamer keep investing in programming over the long term, including original series and live sports, like the NFL's Thursday Night Football franchise, rights to which come in at $1 billion annually. So this will be interesting. I mean, I don't think it'll cause a mass exodus from Amazon Prime because, again, it's not like Prime Video is its own separate service. It just comes with the free package delivery and other benefits that I think are the main reason people are paying for Amazon Prime. So we'll see how many people will upgrade to like the ad-free tier. I think when you're already paying however much it is for Amazon Prime, I think it's over $100 a year, $3 a month. So that's an extra $36, per year for the ad-free tier. I don't know that it's again, it's not going to cause Amazon Prime to like lose. It's just the reality that we're facing with streaming services that have realized they just can't support having the base, just their base ad-free options. They really have to, they're finding they have to introduce those ad included options to make up for the losses that they're taking on these services. All right. So that is a wrap on our top stories, but something I wanted to maybe start doing on the show is a grab bag section where we go over a story or two that's not necessarily a piece of huge news, but might be something fun or interesting about movies that came out over the course of the week. I think it might just help pad out the discussion a little more and things. So for this week's grab bag, our first article comes from Deadline's Matt Grobar. A Guillermo del Toro Star Wars movie almost happened, screenwriter David S. Goyer says. Guillermo del Toro was set around 4 years ago to direct a Star Wars movie that has never come together, screenwriter David S. Goyer has revealed. Goyer divulged the news during a recent appearance on the podcast Happy, Sad, Confused, hosted by Josh Horowitz, sharing that he wrote an unproduced Star Wars movie that Guillermo del Toro was going to direct. When asked why the project never took off, the scribe explained, "There was just a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff going on at Lucasfilm at the time, but it's a cool script. There's a lot of cool artwork from it that was produced." Del Toro chimed in via Twitter fairly quickly to affirm Goyer's account of events. "True, can't say much. Maybe 2 letters, J and BB. Is that 3 letters?" he teased, presumably alluding to the characters Jabba the Hutt and BB-8. Let's see. So, so I think this would have been really cool if you can't remember, Guillermo del Toro directed, the Hellboy movies, most recently the Pinocchio movie, the animated stop-motion Pinocchio movie for Netflix, Pan's Labyrinth, The Shape of Water. He's a really great director, and I would have really liked to see a Star Wars movie from it, just like I would have loved to see his Hobbit movie that he was meant to do before Peter Jackson was brought on. He was originally supposed to do that. I would have loved that. And David S. Goyer, I believe he is probably most known for he helped to write the Dark Knight trilogy. So I think a script from him for a Star Wars could have been cool. And again, so it looks like it was with Guillermo del Toro's T's, J and BB, that very well could mean Jabba, except the BB I think could also mean Boba, Boba Fett, Jabba and Boba Fett. I think that makes more sense to me. I'm not super familiar with the Star Wars timeline, but BB-8 is in the sequel trilogy that came out over the last several years. Jabba the Hutt was more the OG trilogy, and so he was right. So Jabba the Hutt was killed in Return of the Jedi. BB-8 didn't come into play until many years later in The Force Awakens. So I don't know if that necessarily means Jabba and BB. I would guess Jabba the Hutt and Boba. That's just speculation, though. If there is artwork, David Goyer said there was artwork that was produced, that would be cool to see. That's probably under lock and key somewhere. That would be really interesting. However, this kind of joins Guillermo del Toro definitely isn't the only his Star Wars project definitely isn't the only Star Wars project to just kind of fade into obscurity or development hell. I feel like over the last couple of years they announced, Rian Johnson was going to do a trilogy at one point. I can't remember the names, the Weisses or the Game of Thrones guys were gonna do a Star Wars movie or a trilogy. I can't even remember. The director of Logan and 3:10 to Yuma, I'm blanking on his name, and is like the Dial of Destiny. Gosh, what was his name? Like he was attached to a Star Wars movie pretty recently. I think as recently as last year they said he was going to do one, but then almost immediately it seemed like it was off the table. Patty Jenkins, the Wonder Woman director, she had a Star Wars movie or three. I think that was Rogue Squadron. Gosh, so Lucasfilm and Star Wars. Or Lucasfilm can't figure out what it wants to do with Star Wars, what it doesn't want to do. It just seems like they keep approving things and then dropping them. Oof. So, unfortunately, I don't think we'll see this Guillermo del Toro project, but I don't know. Wish upon a star. Maybe one day it will. Our other grab bag is also tangentially related to Star Wars. Is the first reactions for The Creator. That is Gareth Edwards' new sci-fi epic starring John David Washington, which had its first press screening last Monday. Gareth Edwards, if you have seen Godzilla 2014 or Rogue One, Star Wars Rogue One, he directed both those movies, and both of those are movies I really, really love. Godzilla 2014 is like, I think Rogue One is a more relatively universally loved movie. It's, at least from people in my circles, it's considered one of the better Star Wars movies. Godzilla 2014, I think, is a little bit more divisive, but it's I'm a huge fan of it. I really like how Gareth Edwards did the scale of Godzilla, and a lot of people were not happy with how little Godzilla was actually in the movie, but I thought that was a really awesome choice because it made Godzilla seem like, so much of a threat, so much of more of a monument. But putting that aside, the article, this comes from Hollywood Reporter's Abid Rahman. Gareth Edwards' hotly anticipated sci-fi epic The Creator has finally been unveiled for its first audience. Reactions on social media have been pouring in following the screening. The consensus appears to be that The Creator could be a classic. Judging by the early social media reaction from film journalists and critics, there is almost universal praise for the way The Creator looks and the stunning work of cinematographers Oren Soffer and Greg Fraser. Many of those who saw the film on Monday described it as one of 2023's best films. The Creator stars John David Washington, who was the protagonist in Christopher Nolan's Tenet, Gemma Chan, who was Cersei in the Eternals MCU movie, Ken Watanabe, who is just a classic. You cannot go wrong with Ken Watanabe. He was in Godzilla 2014. The only other thing I can think of right now that he was in Detective Pikachu. Is a pretty small role, but he is just cool. He is just a cool guy. Sturgill Simpson, Allison Janney, and newcomer Madeline Una Voiles. So the synopsis is John David Washington stars as Joshua, a hardened ex-Special Forces agent grieving the disappearance of his wife, Chan, played by Chan, who is recruited to hunt down and kill the Creator, the elusive architect of advanced artificial intelligence who has developed a mysterious weapon with the power to end the war and mankind itself. The Creator is written by Edwards and Chris Weitz from a story by Edwards. The film will premiere at Fantastic Fest on September 26th and be released wide September 29th. That is next week. This is definitely one I'm going to see in theaters. I watched the first trailer for it, and only once, because from what even was in the trailer, it was pretty evident that there was going to be some awesome shots, real cool visuals, and I didn't necessarily want to spoil myself or get too familiar with how the movie looks, because I kind of want to go into it blind in the movies. But it really looks impressive. Again, it definitely looks like it's taking some visual cues from Star Wars, of just being a sci-fi fantasy. It doesn't feel too much like Star Wars because it's got that AI slant and things. But I think if you liked Rogue One, or if you even just like Star Wars in general, it's sounding like the creator is definitely something to check out, and honestly could even be a bit better than most Star Wars movies. So I'm really pleased about that. That's really exciting. But that is it for, our grab bag. I, hope that is something I can continue doing. It's, I don't know, kind of fun. Our next segment are new trailers and release dates. Our first one we're going to talk about is Dream Scenario. That is a new A24 movie that stars Nick Cage. Let's see. So this is Variety's J. Kim Murphy. The film stars Cage as a college professor who becomes famous after he inexplicably begins to appear in the dreams of strangers, though his celebrity status faces complications once the world's visions of him become terrifying. This is awesome. I watched this trailer, and I'm really interested. Nick Cage chooses some really interesting projects, and this one, about a guy who suddenly starts appearing in the dreams of people he's never met. It's definitely more of a it looks like it's a comedy, and from the synopsis it sounds like it might lean into dark comedy a little bit. But that's a really interesting premise, where this kind of no-name suddenly becomes world famous because he's appearing in everyone's dreams. And A24 always has some really interesting stuff, so I think I'm probably going to go see this because I'm really curious how that will shake out. And again, based on the trailer, Cage looks like he's given a really good performance in this. And that is coming out theatrically on November 10th. All right. Next thing we're going to talk about is Netflix's The Twits. The Twits is a Roald Dahl adaptation that's coming out. So I don't know if this is planned for a theatrical release yet. But I wanted to bring it up because, again, animation is sort of my thing, and I wanted to bring it up. And I think it's possible that it will get a theatrical release because Netflix kind of has been doing that with some of their more high-profile movies that they maybe hope to see at the Oscars or things like that, like with Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, the Glass Onion, the sequel to Knives Out. So let's get into Netflix's press release. This comes from Netflix's Tadum blog by Aaron Corbett. In 2025, Netflix will release the animated film The Twits, written, directed, and produced by Academy Award nominee Phil Johnston, Ralph Breaks the Internet, and animated by Jellyfish Pictures, The Boss Baby, The Bad Guys. Rounding out the filmmaking team are co-directors Katie Shanahan and Todd DeMong, producer Maggie Malone, co-producer Daisy West, and writer Meg Favreau. The story follows Mr. and Mrs. Twit, who are the miserable owners of a dangerous amusement park, and their meteoric rise to power in their town. The Twits takeover leads to an ongoing conflict between them, two children, and a community of magical animals who are determined to stop them. So it says Phil Johnston was excited to take on this project because it was his favorite book growing up. With it being written, directed, and produced by him, could be good. Could be pretty positive. I think he's had more hits than misses. The only thing he's directed has been Ralph Breaks the Internet, which, frankly, I did not like at all. Was not a fan of Ralph Breaks the Internet. But he did write. He was a writer on Zootopia and Wreck-It Ralph, which I consider those to be a couple of Disney's best. So it could go either way. Maybe he learned some things on Ralph Breaks the Internet that he doesn't want to, replicate in The Twits. It's a completely different project. It's an adaptation, rather than an original script. So we shall see. No trailer for this one. This one is just a first look, like a first image. The character design looks definitely not like a Pixar or Disney realistic style. Very much more of a stylized, exaggerated, very colorful too. Very, very poppy color. So this next one is another guilty pleasure of mine that I wanted to bring up because it means a lot to me, and that is the official release date for Good Burger 2. Now, the first Good Burger is just an incredible movie. I put it up there with Napoleon Dynamite, Nacho Libre, as just being one of those incredibly funny, quotable movies that just never gets old. You can rewatch it 100 times and it's funny every time. I also consider Good Burger to be like a quintessential 90s movie. Just everything about it just like feels 90s, but that's besides the point. So Good Burger 2 has a date of November 22nd of this year. It's coming out on Paramount Plus. According to Slash Film, from Raphael Montemayor. Let's see. Kenan Thompson and Kel Mitchell are returning to play the characters they originated over a quarter of a century ago. They will not be alone, however, as the duo is joined by Kamaya Fairburn, Alex R. Hibbert, Fabrizio Guido, Elizabeth Hinkler, Emily Hinkler, Annabelle Grates, and returning all that cast members Josh Scherver and Lori Beth Denberg. Carmen Electra will also reprise her role as Roxanne from the first film. So I would love because the first Good Burger, one of the side characters was played by Sinbad, and I would love if his character came back, but he's not in this cast list. So we'll see. Maybe he'll come in as a surprise cameo or something. But the synopsis for the film is that Dexter Reed is down on his luck after another one of his inventions fails. Ed welcomes Dex back to Good Burger with open arms and gives him his old job back. With a new crew working at Good Burger, Dex devises a plan to get back on his feet, but unfortunately puts the fate of Good Burger at risk once again. So will this movie kind of suck? Probably. But again, it's very much a guilty pleasure of mine being excited for it with how much I love the first one. And with these kind of Lego sequels that they've been trying to make for some of these streaming services, they generally haven't been blowing people's socks off, but I think it could still be a good time. And then our last new trailer / release date is not a feature film, but a short film I think is pretty notable. This comes from The Hollywood Reporter's Carolyn Giardina, or maybe that's Giardina. Disney characters assemble in Once Upon a Studio trailer. As Disney Animation celebrates its centennial, the studio released the trailer for its nostalgic Once Upon a Studio, an animated short that the filmmakers describe as a love letter to the studio, its artists, and fans. During a press preview Thursday, Chief Creative Officer Jennifer Lee remembered the Zoom meeting during which writers-directors Dan Abraham and Trent Corey pitched the story. "I couldn't talk. I was so emotional," she said, as Abraham added, "I will never forget that pitch. She made us cry right from the start." So the trailer looks really promising, where it's like the studio, and after everyone leaves the studio, all the animated Disney characters, come to life, sort of a night at the museum type situation. The article says roughly 40 voice actors returned for the project, including Paige O'Hara, who played Belle in Beauty and the Beast, Dwayne Johnson, who played Maui in Moana, and Josh Gad, Frozen's Olaf. The filmmakers reported that the animation is all new, but they did incorporate some archival sound for the likes of Cliff Edwards, the voice of Jiminy Cricket in Disney's 1940 animated classic Pinocchio. New voice actors also joined the production for additional classic characters, but underscoring the current climate, the filmmakers received applause when Corey asserted that no AI was used. Thank goodness for that. That would be a horrible, right now with the strikes, with the question of AI would be a horrible time for Disney to try to use that for, something that is very much supposed to evoke classic Disney. But it does sort of, it's tough because it sounds like the creators, those who pitched this short, it sounds like they are really genuinely very passionate. It's going to have new 2D animation, which we don't see a lot of it from Disney or in general anymore. So in some terms, I think it could be very much a love letter, very nostalgic and nice. It's just unfortunate that with everything that Disney involved in is right now, with current events, it's like it can't help but feel a little disingenuous coming from this megacorp that's like trying to get you to trying to hit you in the feels to get you to buy their Disney merchandise, which is unfortunate because I have no doubt that the people making this short are just like, love it for the craft, love it for the creativity, and are very talented and very passionate people who genuinely believe in the magic of Disney. And I do in a sense too, growing up with it. And, I think that the image Disney has presented for a long time of being, the wholesome, family-friendly, magical wonder sort of thing, is sort of falling apart because of what's happening. But I really hope this short will, kind of be a return to form for Disney. And hopefully it'll be a win as well with how many L's Disney has been taking with the performance of with how their other projects have been reviewing. So, Once Upon a Studio will premiere October 15th on ABC and play in theaters alongside Wish, which opens November 22nd. I would encourage you watching the trailer. It does seem like it'll be a very nice thing to see. And then finally, for our last segment, I'm just going to go over what's opening this weekend. This one is surprisingly hard to find out because, a lot of the calendars and websites that release the movies for this weekend, they could be re-releases, they could be, special events, but so it's just it's kind of difficult to parse through. So I think I'm just going to kind of go through all of them regardless of whether or not I've even heard of them. But let's just go for it. So first of all, probably the most notable is Expendables, the fourth installment in the Expendables franchise. I've never seen any of these, but if you're into that, Expendables 4 is coming out. It Lives Inside, which is a drama horror thriller film. Stop Making Sense, which sounds like it's a re-release, maybe a remaster or something, but that's the concert film of Talking Heads. That came out in 1984, Stop Making Sense. The Origin of Evil, a drama thriller that says it's dated 2022, so that sounds like it might be a re-release or something. Comedy sci-fi Relax, I'm From the Future, starring Rhys Darby, who is awesome. Then we have Creepers R Us, comedy horror, and LA Undercover crime drama. So, yeah, I hadn't heard of this Relax, I'm From the Future, but I'll have to see if that's playing near me or how I can watch that because Rhys Darby is a treat. He is a comedic treat. So that about does it for today. Now that we're on YouTube, I'd love to hear more from you. If you want, feel free to leave a comment about a movie you watched recently, whether it's new or old, and maybe I'll respond on the next show next week. But feel free to subscribe if you should so choose, and don't forget to rate the podcast here on Spotify. But thanks for listening to Missing Links Movie Podcast, and we will now return you to your regularly scheduled life.